dive into the questions tonight. We're going to start with the most contentious, at least to our listeners, the gas tax. Senator Lee Bright, commercials running on our station have repeatedly said you were AWOL on the gas tax, you did nothing, that you had a chance to vote for a bill that would have fixed roads but didn't have a tax increase, but you voted no. What is the truth? I want to give you a chance to respond to these ads. We've all heard them.
We passed a bill in the Senate to spend $400 million in recurring revenues on a continuing basis, 30 to 15, along party lines. Republicans stood together for the first time really since I've been there. A lot of times the Republicans side with the Democrats, but for once we stood together. The House would have none of it, and it ended up being a bond bill, and the chamber has been very dishonest. And they've talked about the fact that I haven't voted for any roads funding. That's just not true. I filibustered the budget to force $216 million to the roads. I mean, I have stood firm for trying to get funding to the roads, and that money went to the counties. The DOT needs to be reformed. But if I'm in the Senate, we're going to have a fight, and we're going to try to stop them again like we did the last time for the gas tax.
I don't want to create a false impression, listeners. I want the listeners to hear from you, not your supporters. So, look, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but let's hear from you.
If I leave the Senate, I can assure you a gas tax will pass.
So you will vote no?
I will vote no, and I will stand in the well just like I did last time. There's enough of us right now to stop it. But if you take me out of the Senate, you'll have a gas tax increase.
Scott Talley, how will you vote if a gas tax hike is put before you?
Well, I told you when I appeared on your show before that I would support a revenue-neutral road funding bill. And what I mean by that is if we are going to have to consider a gas tax increase, we're also going to have to tie it to income tax relief and make sure any revenue generated from that legislation goes specifically to roads. I think this year when we had a surplus money should be spent on one-time projects. We don't need to get surplus money one year and start funding programs that are going to far exceed the lifespan of any surplus. So I had no problem with that surplus going to roads this year, but we're not going to fix the roads overnight. I've knocked on almost 4,000 doors in this district. If anybody brings up an issue, it's the roads. We're concerned about it. We've got to do something. It's affecting economic opportunity and development across the state. And I think that's the job that we need to do day one in the Senate.
But what you just described, Scott Talley, is Nikki Haley's plan. We swapped some income tax relief for some gas tax hike. Problem is the gas tax hike happens now, and the income tax hike, the income tax relief maybe happens later, maybe it does.
Well,
does the income tax relief have to happen at the same time? Because that's a critical question. The next General Assembly could come along and wipe that out.
It sure does, and it's got to be
so
tied
you won't vote for it unless.
That's exactly right. It has to be neutral. But think about this, Chair. When the Senate passes a bond bill this year, who pays for that? Only South Carolinians. Right now, who's paying the gas tax to go to roads? Only South Carolinians. We've got to come up with a plan that says if you're using our roads, you're going to pay to fund the maintenance of them. And that's something that gets lost in this debate a lot of times, is that there are people from out of state that come through the state all the time. So you can pass a bill that is revenue neutral from a procedural standpoint, but also saves the state of South Carolina taxpayers money. Because when you pass a bond bill and you say we fixed our roads, no you haven't. You've put that solely on the backs of South Carolina taxpayers.
Lee Bright, I'm going to give you a response to that.
Well, and that's another thing that the Chamber's been attacking me on, is I voted against the bond bill. I didn't think we should borrow money to fix our roads when we have surpluses, and it sounds like maybe we do agree on that. The Chamber has, like I said, once again, misrepresented my position. I wanted to put recurring money into the roads, $400 million, but I was not going to vote for a bond bill, and I was not going to vote for a gas tax increase.
Gentlemen,
we
hear during the course of our programs, people posit the idea that, look, the legislature, essentially what they're doing is holding the drivers of South Carolina hostage while they have a $1.4 billion surplus, and yet we don't see the roads being fixed. We see potholes so deep, Chinese voices are coming out of them. People feel as if that the money exists to solve these problems, and yet the legislature refuses to do it because they want more taxes. Is that an accurate assessment? And Senator Bright, we'll begin with you.
I believe they held us hostage. There's no question. The moderates and the Democrats in Columbia want to spend more money. We've got a spending problem. Not a taxing problem, but a spending problem. We've got the same problem in Washington. But we've got a minority of senators and House members that are willing to fight. And obviously the chamber hates that because we're pointing out the truth. And it's kind of like the canary in the coal mine. You know, they used to bring along the canary to go into the coal mines, and if the canary died, then they had carbon dioxide. We are the warning signal. And they want us to be silent so they can raise your taxes and raid the treasury.
But Bob, I think people want a solution, and we haven't had that. For 2 years, this has been an issue that has been at the forefront on citizens' mind. You've heard lip service from the legislature about doing something. People do not trust the legislature. That's problem number one. So they want to see that you do what you say you're going to do. That's why I say if we're going to continue or we're going to consider long-term road funding, we have to tie it to road funding. It can't get sucked into the general fund. And people on the campaign trail say all the time, there's waste in the budget. Well, where are the amendments that people put up to take this so-called waste out of the budget? When I was in the House, I was named one of 12 taxpayer heroes because I stood up and I worked to cut waste from the budget and pork projects and Irmo peanut festivals and okra struts and whatever the case is. But we've got to do something about this. We cannot continue to kick this can down the road. And like I said earlier, relying solely on surplus revenue is just not the solution, because we're not going to have surplus revenue. We shouldn't have surplus revenue every year. We have to come up with a sustainable solution.